At exactly 12:02 p.m., the interrogation room camera flickered to life. The timestamp glowed red in the corner of the screen like a warning light. The room itself was painfully ordinary. Gray walls, metal table bolted to the floor, two plastic chairs, a box of tissues, a humming fluorescent bulb that made everything look colder than it really was. No windows, no clocks, no sense of time. The kind of room designed to make minutes feel like hours. And sitting alone inside it was a girl who still believed this was just a conversation. Amber Riswin was 20 years old. She wore a loose hoodie that swallowed her frame and jeans that looked like she'd slept in them. Her hair was messy, tied back without much care. There was dried mascara under one eye like she had cried earlier but wiped it away too fast. Her leg bounced under the table. Not fear, not yet, more like impatience, like she had somewhere else she needed to be. She looked around the room the way someone might glance around a dentist's office waiting room, mildly uncomfortable, but not panicked, because she didn't understand something very important. She wasn't here to explain what happened. She was here to confess. The door opened with a soft mechanical click. Detective Edward stepped inside holding a small bottle of water and a sports drink. He placed them gently on the table like he was offering snacks to a guest. Not a suspect. "You want water or Gatorade?" he asked casually. Amber smiled. Polite, almost cheerful. "Water's fine. Thank you." Thank you. People don't usually thank homicide detectives. That was the first thing Edwards noticed. He sat down across from her slowly, deliberately, studying her. 20 years old, 5'4", barely 100 pounds. And according to the report he'd read that morning, she had shot a man in the face, then cut his throat. Twice, Edwards had interviewed gang members, cartel runners, armed robbers, hardened people, people who sweated, people who shook, people who lawyered up. Amber did none of those things. She just smiled, like this was customer service. "All right, Amber," he said softly, folding his hands. "Before we talk, I've got to read you your rights. Just procedure. Protects both of us." She nodded eagerly. "Okay." No hesitation. No fear. Just, "Okay." He read her Miranda rights slowly. She didn't interrupt. Didn't ask questions. Didn't ask for a lawyer. When he finished, he asked, "Do you understand?" "Yes." "Want to talk to me?" "Yeah. Of course." Of course. That phrase again. Edwards leaned back. Time to open the door. So, broad and general question. What happened? Amber inhaled. A deep breath. The kind you take before telling a long story. And then she began. Last night was kinda like the culmination of things. Culmination. Not fight. Not attack. Not self-defense. Culmination. Like this had been building. Like pressure finally releasing. She spoke softly. Calmly. Like describing a bad relationship to a friend. He'd been getting more aggressive. Like progressively worse. "Who's he?" "Blake." No last name. Just Blake. Like everyone should already know him. He would grab my wrists, shake me around, spit in my face sometimes, break stuff, throw things. He scratched my guitar, like on purpose. She frowned at that. That was the first real emotion. Not fear of violence. Not trauma. Anger about the guitar. Edwards noticed. He always noticed what people chose to emphasize. She kept going. "Last night he bought LSD. Started acting nutso. Like, really nutso." She half laughed at the word. Nutso. Not dangerous. Not psychotic. Nutso. Like he was a drunk uncle at Thanksgiving. I laid down on the futon. I just wanted to sleep. And is playing with a gun. Edwards didn't move. Didn't blink. And he pointed it at me. Sideways. Like sideways. She demonstrated with her fingers like a kid pretending to hold a toy pistol. So I grabbed it, pushed his hand away, grabbed it again. A pause. She looked at the table, then said it. I let loose. No shake in her voice, no tremble, just matter of fact, like describing flipping a light switch. Edwards asked gently, "Where did you shoot him?" "I think his face." "Think. Most people remember exactly where they shot someone. Faces tend to stick. Why there?" He was just there, like right in front of me, smothering me. She held her hands out, showing distance, 6 inches, arm's reach. Then she said something that made Edwards write a note. He started spilling blood everywhere. Not bleeding, spilling, like a drink tipping over. Language matters, always. And then he came up to get me again, so I reached into my pocket, and I caught him. Edwards looked up. Caught him. She nodded. My knife. Oh, like it was obvious, like everyone carried knives. So you stabbed him. I cut him. Correcting the word. Cut. Cleaner. Less violent. Less ugly. I cut him. Then she smiled again. And that smile, it didn't match the story at all. Edward had seen shock before. Dissociation. But this was different. She wasn't detached. She was comfortable. Like she believed she'd done the right thing. Like this whole thing was justified. Outside the room, another detective watched through the glass and whispered, "She doesn't even realize she's cooked." And he was right. Amber thought this was self-defense. But the evidence outside told a different story. 4 witnesses, security cameras, blood trails, and one very important detail. Blake had been running away, not attacking, not chasing her, running, and she had followed him, knife in hand. The story wasn't over when he fell. It had just begun. Amber kept talking, words spilling faster now, about guards yelling, about neighbors, about being called names, about chaos. She described it like the world had wronged her, like she was the victim of everyone. Even now, even here, Edwards let her talk, because people like Amber didn't need pressure. They filled silence on their own, and the more they filled it, the worse it got. For them, not for him. After 15 minutes, her story had already crossed itself 3 times. First Blake was crawling, then standing, then running. First she didn't follow him, then she did, then she didn't remember. Memory shouldn't change that fast, not after something this big, unless you're building it as you speak. Edwards finally leaned forward, voice still gentle, still friendly. So, once he got outside, what happened next? Amber tilted her head, thinking, like choosing which version to use. And that's when the cracks began to show. The question hung in the air longer than it should have. So, once he got outside, what happened next? Amber didn't answer right away. Most suspects rushed to fill silence. She didn't. She stared at the table like the wood grain might help her remember. Or maybe like she was choosing which memory sounded better. The fluorescent light hummed above them. A faint electrical buzz. The only sound in the room. Then, she shrugged. He was just being dramatic. Edwards blinked once. Dramatic? Yeah, like stumbling around and yelling and stuff. Making it a whole scene. A whole scene. Like Blake wasn't bleeding out. Like this was theater. Like he was embarrassing her. Not dying. She rubbed her palms on her jeans. Casual, almost bored. I don't like when people make scenes, she added. There it was again. Not fear. Not guilt. Annoyance. Edwards kept his voice neutral. So he goes outside. Then what do you do? I followed him. No hesitation. Like that part didn't matter. Why? Well, he still had the gun earlier. I didn't know if he was gonna come back or something. But you had the gun at that point, right? A tiny pause. Yeah. So why follow him? Another pause. Longer this time. She tucked hair behind her ear. I don't know. Instinct, I guess. Instinct. People use that word when they don't want to explain a choice. Because instincts can't be questioned. They just happen. But Edwards knew something important. Following someone who is bleeding and running away isn't instinct. It's pursuit. And pursuit changes everything. Outside the building, the night air had been cold. That's what the witnesses said. Around 11:47 p.m. Quiet apartment complex. Most lights off. Just porch lamps and street lights. A normal Tuesday night. Until screaming started. One neighbor, a nurse named Carla, told police she heard a man shout, "Help! Help me!" Not get away from me. Not stop fighting. Help! Then she heard footsteps. Fast. Uneven. slapping pavement. Then another set behind them. Slower, deliberate, not running, walking, like someone who wasn't afraid, like someone who knew the ending already. Back in the interrogation room, Amber tapped her fingers on the table. I remember he kept slipping, she said. There was blood everywhere. It was kinda gross. Kinda gross. Edwards wrote that down. Not horrifying, not traumatic. Gross, like stepping in mud. He fell near the sidewalk, she continued. I think he tried to grab my leg or something. You think? Yeah, everything was blurry. Convenient. Memory blur always shows up where responsibility begins. So what did you do when he fell? Edwards asked softly. She mimed it with her hand. A quick downward motion, like slicing bread. I just, made sure. The room went still. Even the air felt thicker. Made sure of what, Amber? That he couldn't get up again. There it was. Plain. Simple. Not self-defense. Finalization. She wasn't describing escape. She was describing completion. Like finishing a chore. Like checking a box. Edward slid a photo across the table. Standard tactic. Not aggressive. Just quiet. Matter of fact. The image showed the sidewalk outside the apartment complex. Dark stains everywhere. Smears. Handprints. A trail that looked like someone had tried to crawl. Amber leaned forward. Studied it. No flinch. No tears. No recoil. Just curiosity. Oh, she said. That's a lot more blood than I thought. Edwards watched her carefully. Most people break right here. Photos make it real. Photos rip away the story they built in their heads. But Amber didn't break. She evaluated, like she was reviewing someone else's accident. Do you recognize this area? He asked. Yeah, that's by the mailbox. And that trail right there. She squinted. Oh, that's probably from when he was trying to get away. Probably. Like it was speculation. Not something she caused. Why do you think he was trying to get away? She blinked, confused by the question. I mean, because he was high and freaking out. Not because he was dying. Not because someone with a knife was behind him. Her brain simply wouldn't go there. Wouldn't assign herself that role. In her mind, she was still the threatened one. Still reacting. Never initiating. Even though every fact said otherwise. Outside the interrogation room, 2 detectives reviewed the hallway camera footage. Black and white. Grainy, but clear enough. Blake burst out the apartment door first. Staggering. Clutching his face. Blood pouring through his fingers. He trips on the steps. Falls hard. Scrambles up. Looks back over his shoulder. Terrified. Then, Amber steps out calmly. Not running. Walking. Knife visible in her hand. Not raised. Just hanging casually at her side. Like someone taking out the trash. She follows him down the sidewalk at a steady pace. He tries to run. He slips. He falls again. She closes the distance easily. No panic. No rush. Just inevitability. Like gravity. Then the camera loses him behind a parked truck. But the audio still catches something. A scream. Cut short. Then silence. Long silence. Too long. Inside the room, Edwards asked quietly, Amber, when you followed him outside, were you scared? She thought about it. Actually thought. Not really. Honest. Terrifyingly honest. So what were you feeling? She shrugged. Just done. Done. Like she'd reached her limit. Like Blake wasn't a person anymore. Just a problem to solve. And when you used a knife, Edward continued, what was going through your mind? She stared straight at him. Blank. Nothing behind the eyes. Nothing. That answer chilled him more than any angry confession ever could. Nothing meant no heat of the moment rage. No panic. No chaos. Just emptiness. Cold decisions are always worse than emotional ones. Because cold means deliberate. Minutes passed. She kept talking. About random details. How her shoe got sticky. How someone yelled at her. How an ambulance took forever. Like she was complaining about bad service. Not describing a death. Then Edwards asked a question that matters most in every case like this. Amber, at any point, did you try to help him? Silence. Longer this time. Her foot stopped bouncing. No. Why not? She frowned, like the question didn't make sense. Why would I? That was the moment. The exact moment Edwards knew. Not self-defense. Not accident. Not even blind rage. It was something colder. Something scarier. She truly didn't believe Blake deserved help. To her, he wasn't injured. He was inconvenient. And inconveniences get removed. Edwards closed the folder slowly. The sound echoed. Soft. Final. He looked at her for a long time. 20 years old. Soft voice. Polite. Saying thank you and okay and of course. And yet, a man was dead on a sidewalk because he had decided he shouldn't get up again. Some people look like monsters. Some don't. The ones who don't are always harder. Because they don't even know what they are. He folded his hands. Next phase. Time to confront her with what the witnesses saw. Time to show her the gap between her story. Oh, and reality. He slid another photo forward. This one closer. Much closer. And said quietly, Amber, we need to talk about what happened after you fell the second time. The photograph stopped halfway between them. Amber didn't touch it at first. She just stayed. Like if she waited long enough, it might change into something else. It didn't. It never does. This one was closer than the last. Much closer. No wide sidewalk. No distant stains. Just Blake. On the ground. Face turned sideways against the concrete. One arm stretched out. Fingers curled like he tried to grab something that wasn't there. And the blood. It wasn't a spill anymore. It was a pool. Thick. Dark. Too much. The kind of red that doesn't look real until you realize it is. Amber leaned forward. Squinted. Oh, she said quietly. Not horror. Not grief. Just recognition. Like seeing an old photo from a party you barely remember. That's when he fell again, she said. Her voice was almost thoughtful. Like she was narrating someone else's life. Edwards didn't respond right away. He let the silence work. Let the image sink in. Because sometimes photos speak louder than any accusation ever could. Finally, he asked, walk me through this moment. She exhaled slowly. Okay, Her eyes stayed on the picture, not avoiding it, studying it. That's when he was trying to crawl, I think. Crawl where? Just away. Away. The simplest word in the world. But it destroyed her whole self-defense story. People attacking you don't crawl away. People afraid do. Edward spoke gently. And what were you doing while he was crawling? She scratched her sleeve. I was just standing there. Just standing there. Yeah. For how long? She shrugged. Like, a few seconds, maybe more? I don't know. Witnesses had timed it. 43 seconds. 43 seconds of him trying to drag himself across concrete. 43 seconds of her watching. Not helping. Not leaving. Just watching. Almost a full minute. An eternity when someone's bleeding out. Edwards tapped the photo lightly. With a knife still in your hand. Yeah. No shame. Just confirmation. Outside the room, the hallway camera showed Detective Morris shaking his head. He had time, Morris muttered. He had time to live if she just walked away. Because that's the truth most people don't understand. This wasn't about the first shot, or even the first cut. People survive those. All the time. It was everything after. The follow, the watching, the decision. Every step after that first moment stacked up like bricks. Until the wall became murder. Back inside, Edward slid another photo forward. This one made even seasoned officers look away. Not because it was graphic, but because it was human. Blake's hand, just his hand, covered in blood, palm scraped raw, concrete embedded in the skin, fingernails cracked, like he'd been clawing the ground, trying, desperately, to move. Amber tilted her head. Oh, wow, she said softly. Do you know how his hand got like that? Edwards asked. She thought about it, probably from falling. Or crawling. Maybe. The word maybe again. Always distancing. Always uncertain. Like she wasn't standing 2 feet away when it happened. You ever tried to crawl on concrete? Amber, he asked quietly. She shook her head. It tears you up pretty fast. She didn't answer, because what was there to say? Edwards changed tactics. Voice softer now, almost sympathetic. Help me understand something. Okay. If you thought he was dangerous, why not go back inside and lock the door? She blinked, like that option had never occurred to her. I don't know. You had the gun. Yeah. You were safe inside. Yeah. So why follow him outside? Silence. Longer this time. Her brain working. Searching. Looking for a reason that didn't sound bad. I guess. I just didn't want him coming back later. There it was. Not fear in the moment. Prevention. Finality. She didn't want a future problem. So she ended it permanently. That's not defense. That's choice. Edwards opened the folder again. Pulled out something different. Not photos. Paper. Statements. Amber, we talked to your neighbors. She nodded casually. Okay. One of them said they heard you say something. Oh. Yeah. He glanced down. Then read slowly. She heard you yell, "Stop moving." Amber froze. Just for a second. First real freeze all day. Then she laughed lightly. Oh, yeah. That sounds like me. Like me. Not, I don't remember. Not that's wrong. Just, yeah. That sounds like me. Why were you telling him to stop moving? Edwards asked. She shrugged again. So he'd stop moving. So you could do what? Silence. And there it was. The first moment she didn't have an answer ready, because any answer would sound terrible. And for the first time, she seemed to realize that. Her fingers stopped tapping. Her foot stopped bouncing. The room suddenly felt smaller. Edwards leaned back, gave her space, then quietly said, Amber, did you go outside to protect yourself, or to finish it? The question hung heavy. He didn't repeat it, didn't push, just let it sit there between them like a weight. She swallowed. Her throat moved. Small, subtle, but real. I don't know, she whispered. First whisper of the day. I just didn't want it anymore. Didn't want what? The fight? The relationship? Him? She didn't clarify. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe the truth was too ugly to say out loud. Sometimes motives aren't dramatic. Not revenge. Not rage. Just exhaustion. Just done. And done can be deadly. Minutes passed. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Edwards watched her carefully, because this is the stage where people either break or double down, where reality either sinks in or they build stronger walls. He had seen both, and he still wasn't sure which Amber would choose. Then he said, There's something else we haven't talked about yet. She looked up. What? The time. What about it? There were almost 2 minutes between when he fell and when anyone called 911. She frowned. Okay? That's a long time. Amber. Silence. In those 2 minutes, what were you doing? She opened her mouth, then closed it, because now there were gaps even she couldn't fill. And gaps are where the truth hides. In those 2 minutes, what were you doing? The question didn't sound aggressive. Didn't sound accusing. If anything, it sounded gentle, curious, like he was asking what she ate for breakfast. But it landed like a brick. Amber opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Closed it again. Her eyes drifted to the table, then the wall, then the door, anywhere but him, because this question didn't have a comfortable answer. Time is different from memory. People forget details. They mix things up. But time is math. And math doesn't lie. 2 minutes, 120 seconds. Long enough to send a text, wash your hands, walk half a block, save someone's life. Oh, stand there and do nothing. Or worse, Edwards didn't rescue her from the silence. He just waited. Finally, I don't really remember, she said quietly. First time all day her voice wasn't steady. Not loud, not confident, just smaller. He nodded like that was reasonable. Okay, that's fair. Stress messes with memory sometimes. She relaxed a little. Then he added, So let's walk through it together. Her shoulders tightened again. He slid a printed timeline across the table. Clean. Simple. Black ink. 11 hours 46 minutes and 12 seconds. First gunshot heard. 11 hours 46 minutes and 19 seconds. Second loud noise. 11 hours 46 minutes and 41 seconds. Male exits apartment. 11 hours 46 minutes and 47 seconds. Amber exits apartment. 11 hours 47 minutes and 3 seconds. Male falls near sidewalk. 11 hours 47 minutes and 46 seconds. Witness hears screaming stop. 11 hours 49 minutes and 2 seconds. First 911 call placed. He tapped the last line. That gap right there, he said softly. That's what we're talking about. She stared at the numbers like they were written in another language. 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Doesn't sound long. Until you imagine someone bleeding on concrete the entire time. Edwards continued. Multiple neighbors said the screaming stopped around 11 hours 47 minutes and 46 seconds. She nodded slowly. Okay. But nobody called 911 until 11:49. Okay. So for over 2 minutes, it was quiet. Quiet. No struggle. No shouting. No chaos. Just silence. Which meant the fight was already over. Which meant whatever happened next wasn't self-defense. It was decision-making. What were you doing while it was quiet, Amber? She rubbed her palms together. A nervous habit. Finally, I think I was just standing there. For 2 minutes. Maybe. You didn't go back inside. No. Didn't call for help. No. Didn't check on him. She hesitated. Not really. Not really. The kind of phrase people use when the truth sounds worse than silence. Edwards leaned forward slightly. What does not really mean? She stared at the photo again. The one with Blake on the ground. I just watched for a second. How long is a second? I don't know. 10 seconds. Maybe. 30. I don't know. A minute. Silence. Her jaw tightened. Maybe. He nodded slowly. And during that time, was he moving? Yeah. How? Like twitching, trying to get up. And you didn't help him. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. No. Why not? She snapped a little. Defensive now. Because he just tried to kill me. First spark of emotion all day. Anger. Fear. Something raw. But Edwards didn't flinch. Amber, when someone is trying to crawl away from you, are they trying to kill you? Silence. Her breathing got heavier. Because deep down, she knew. Outside, Detective Morris rewound the security footage again. Frame by frame. Blake falls. Amber approaches. She stops 2 feet away. Just stands there, watching. 30 seconds. 40. He tries to drag himself forward. Leave streaks on the sidewalk. She doesn't move. Doesn't kneel. Doesn't run. Just watches. Then, she steps closer. Leans down. The camera angle blocks the exact motion. But her arm moves. Quick. Downward. Twice. Then she stands up again. And steps back. That's when the screaming stops. 40 seconds later, a neighbor opens their door. And Amber is still there. Just standing. Knife at her side. Like nothing happened. Like she's waiting for a bus. Back in the room, Edward slid something new across the table. Not a photo. Not paper. A still frame. Grainy. Black and white. But unmistakable. Amber froze. That's me, she whispered. Yeah. The image showed her silhouette under the streetlight. Knife visible. Arm down. Blake on the ground in front of her. Motionless. What do you think you're doing here? Edwards asked quietly. She stared at it. Long. Hard. Like maybe she could see inside the past. I don't know. You look scared. No. Panicked. No. What do you look like? She swallowed. Calm. It almost sounded like a confession. The room felt colder now. Or maybe it was just the weight settling in. Edward spoke softer than ever. Amber, self-defense usually looks messy. Chaotic. People run. They scream. They get away. He tapped the photo gently. This doesn't look like someone escaping. No response. This looks like someone deciding. Her eyes watered for the first time. Not crying, just moisture. Reality pressing in, cracking the version she'd built in her head. I didn't mean to, she started. Didn't mean to what? Kill him? Follow him? Finish it? Even she didn't seem sure. Sometimes, Edward said quietly, people don't realize the moment they cross the line. She looked up at him, eyes wide. They think they are still protecting themselves, when really they are punishing someone. The word punishing hit her hard, because that's what it really was. Not fear, not survival. Punishment. For the fights, for the yelling, for the broken guitar, for everything. All poured into one final decision. He closed the folder. Slow, deliberate, then asked a question that changes everything. Amber, when you walked outside with that knife, did you already know how it was going to end? Silence filled the room. Heavy, suffocating. And for the first time since she sat down in that chair, Amber didn't look like a girl telling a story. She looked like someone standing at the edge of the truth, afraid to look down, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Her lips trembled, just slightly. I don't know. But this time, it didn't sound like confusion. It sounded like fear, real fear, not of Blake, not of the past, but of what she might actually be. I don't know. But it wasn't confusion anymore. It was fear. And Edwards recognized that kind of fear instantly. Not fear of jail. Not fear of consequences. Fear of yourself. Fear of realizing you're capable of something you never thought you were. That's the moment people break. Or lie harder. There's rarely anything in between. Amber's fingers curled into the sleeves of her hoodie. She pulled them over her hands like a kid hiding from cold. Small. Suddenly small. Not the calm girl from an hour ago. Not the polite, smiling version. Something had shifted. Just slightly. But enough. Edwards didn't push right away. He knew better. When cracks appear, you don't hammer them. You let gravity do the work. Let the truth fall out on its own. So he changed direction. Soft voice. Almost casual. Tell me about Blake. She blinked. Thrown off. What? Before last night. Just him. You too. She stared at the wall, thinking, and for the first time, her story didn't come out smooth and rehearsed. It stumbled. He was complicated. Everyone says that. Complicated is a word people use when they don't want to admit something ugly. He could be sweet, she added quickly. Like really sweet. He'd cook sometimes, and he bought me strings for my guitar once. Bought me strings. Such a small, normal memory. It didn't match the monster she'd been describing earlier. Edwards noticed. So not always bad. No. Did he hit you? A pause. Not really. Not really again. What does that mean? He'd grab me sometimes. Shake me. Stuff like that. Punch you. No. Choke you. No. Threaten to kill you. No, not like that. Each answer quietly chipped away at self-defense, because self-defense needs danger, immediate danger, and the danger she described kept shrinking, from monster to jerk to just a toxic relationship. Bad? Sure. Deadly? Not quite. She kept talking, like once the door opened, everything spilled out. He just got mean when he used stuff, like drugs or whatever. He'd say things, break things. He smashed my phone once. That make you mad? Yeah. How mad? She shrugged. I don't know. Pretty mad. Ever think about leaving him? Yeah. So why didn't you? Silence. Her jaw tightened. Because he'd freak out. So you stayed. Yeah. And it built up. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Sometimes resentment isn't loud. It doesn't scream. It stacks, quietly, like dishes in a sink. One plate, then another, until suddenly everything feels overwhelming. And one tiny push sends it all crashing. Edwards leaned forward slightly. Amber, be honest with me. She nodded. When you grabbed that gun, Were you scared? Yes. Quick answer. Genuine. I believe you, he said. Her shoulders loosened. Because finally, something she said matched reality. Fear at the start. That made sense. But after he was shot, Edwards continued. Were you still scared? She opened her mouth. Stopped. Thought. Not really. There it was again. Not really. So what were you feeling? Long pause. She stared at her hands, then said quietly, angry. First honest word all day. Angry. Not afraid. Not trapped. Angry. At him. At the relationship. At everything. And when you followed him outside, were you scared or angry? Her breathing got heavier. Angry. And when you used a knife? Tears welled up now. Not falling yet. Just gathering. Angry. The room went silent, because anger changes everything. Self-defense happens in fear. Punishment happens in anger. And courts know the difference. Outside the glass, Morris whispered, There it is. Because that's what they'd been waiting for. Not a confession, just motive. And motive had just walked into the room on its own. Edward spoke gently. No judgment. No raised voice. Amber, anger makes people do things they can't undo. She nodded slowly, eyes shiny now, but anger isn't the same as danger. Silence. When he was crawling away, was he dangerous to you? Her lips trembled. No, the smallest word in the world, but heavier than anything she'd said all day. No, not dangerous. Which meant, there it was. The line, clear, bright, unavoidable. Everything after that moment wasn't protection. It was choice. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. I didn't think about it like that, she whispered. I know. Everything felt loud. My head was loud, and I just wanted it to stop. So you made it stop? Not a question, a statement. And she didn't argue, didn't correct him, didn't explain, because deep down, she knew. Edwards opened the folder one more time. One last thing, he said softly. She nodded. Inside was a medical report. He didn't show her the worst parts. Didn't need to. Just one sentence highlighted. He slid it across. She read silently, her lips moving slightly. Then she stopped, stayed. Read it again. What does that mean? She asked. It means a final wound happened while he was lying on the ground. Her throat tightened. Oh! It wasn't from a struggle. Silence. It wasn't defensive. More silence. It was deliberate. The word hung there. Deliberate. Not accident. Not chaos. Deliberate. Her shoulders started shaking. Finally the weight was real. Not the story. Not her version. The truth. Raw and ugly. I didn't want to kill him, she whispered. And for the first time, it actually sounded like she meant it. But sometimes not wanting something doesn't stop you from choosing it anyway. Edwards folded his hands. There was only one place left to go now. The place every interrogation ends when the walls come down. Amber, he said quietly, I need you to tell me exactly what happened in those last seconds, step by step. Her breathing hitched, because now there was nowhere left to hide. Amber, I need you to tell me exactly what happened in those last seconds, step by step. No tricks now. No photos. No evidence slides. Just words. Because this is the part that matters most. The part where stories fall apart. Details expose truth. Big lies survive. Tiny details don't. Amber stared at the table like it might open up and swallow her. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the metal surface. For the first time since walking into the station, she looked tired. Not annoyed. Not defensive. Just exhausted. Like she'd been holding up a heavy lie for hours and her arm finally gave out. Okay, she whispered. Edwards nodded once. Take your time. Silence stretched. Then, he fell again, she said. Which fall? The second one, by the mailbox. Okay, then what? I walked up to him. How fast? She frowned. Normal walking. Not running, not rushing. Just walking, like crossing a parking lot. Edwards let that sink in. Were you holding the knife already? Yes. Why? I don't know. I just didn't put it away. Didn't put it away. Like it was a set of keys. Not a weapon. What was he doing? He was on his stomach, kinda rolling, trying to push himself up. She demonstrated with her hands. Slow. Weak. He say anything? Yeah. What did he say? Her voice got smaller. He said, please. The room went still. Even the air conditioner sounded louder. Edwards didn't interrupt, didn't soften it, because that word deserved to sit there. Please. Not threats, not insults, not aggression. Please. The most human word there is. What did you think when he said that? Edwards asked quietly. She swallowed. I don't know. But her face said she did know. She just didn't want to say it. Did it scare you? No. Did it make you think he was going to attack you? No. What did it make you feel? A tear slipped down her cheek. First one all day. Mad. Mad. Again. Not fear. Never fear. Just anger. Because begging doesn't match the story she built in her head. Monsters don't beg. Victims do. And seeing him like that probably shattered her justification. So instead of stopping, she doubled down. Okay, Edward said gently. Keep going. Step by step. She nodded. I was standing over him. How close? Like, right there, a foot away maybe. So he couldn't reach you. No. Couldn't grab you. No. Couldn't hurt you. No. Each answer landed like a hammer. No. 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 Self-defense was gone now. Completely gone. What did you do next? She closed her eyes, like watching it behind her eyelids. I told him to stop moving. Why? I don't know. I just wanted him to stop. Stop what? Everything. Everything. Not the attack. Not the threat. Everything. His voice. His existence. The whole situation. She just wanted it erased. And did he stop? Edwards asked. Not really. He was still twitching. Twitching. That word hurt. Because twitching isn't threatening. It's dying. Her breathing got shaky now, hands trembling in her sleeves. But she kept talking. Because once people start telling the real version, they usually can't stop. I remember looking around, she said. At what? The apartments. The lights. I thought someone was going to come out and start yelling at me again. So what did you think? That I needed to hurry. Edwards didn't react outwardly, but inside, that word mattered. Hurry, not escape, not hide. Finish. What did you hurry to do, Amber? Her lips quivered. Make sure. Same phrase as before, but now it sounded different. Now it sounded awful, because now everyone knew exactly what it meant. Her voice cracked. I bent down. How? Like one knee. And then, She stopped, hands shaking harder. Edwards waited. Didn't push. Seconds passed. Then she forced it out. I cut his neck. Barely audible. The words felt heavy. Ugly. Real. Once. She nodded. Yeah. The report said twice. But he didn't correct her. Not yet. And after that, I stood up. What was he doing? Nothing. Nothing. He stopped moving. The sentence shattered in the air, because that's the moment. The exact moment life left. And she knew it. And what did you feel right then? Edwards asked softly. She stared straight ahead. Blank again. Quiet. Quiet. Not relief. Not safety. Quiet. Like the noise in her head finally stopped. And that might have been the most disturbing answer yet. Outside the glass, Morris muttered. She's describing an execution. Because that's what it sounded like now. Not a fight. Not chaos. Step by step. Walk. Stand. Wait. Kneel. Cut. Stand up. Silence. Cold. Methodical. Inside, Amber hugged herself tighter. I didn't think, she whispered. I swear I didn't think. I believe you, Edward said. Because sometimes that's true. Sometimes people don't think. They just act. And sometimes that's worse. Because it means something dark inside them made the choice automatically. Without permission. Without debate. Just done. He slid one last tissue box closer to her. She didn't take one. Just stared at the table. Small again. Very small. Then she asked quietly, "Is he really dead?" First time she said it out loud. "Dead." Edwards nodded. "Yes." Her face crumpled. Not dramatic sobbing. Not screaming. Just slow tears. Silent. Like reality finally arrived. Not the version in her head. The real one. Concrete. Permanent. Irreversible. Because now she understood something very simple. He didn't die during the fight. He didn't die from the shot. He died because of what she did after. And that difference changes everything. Edwards folded his hands. There was only one thing left to do. The question every detective eventually asks. The one that seals it. "Amber." She didn't look up. "If you had just walked away." A pause. Would he still be alive? The room went completely silent. No humming. No shuffling. Nothing. Just truth waiting. Her shoulders started shaking again. And this time, she nodded, very slowly. Yes. Her head moved only an inch. Maybe less. But it was enough. Yes. If she had walked away, he'd still be alive. Not a detective's theory. Not speculation. Her own answer. And once that truth exists, you can't take it back. The room felt heavier, like the air pressure changed. Amber kept staring at the table, shoulders shaking quietly. No dramatic sobbing. No movie-star breakdown. Just small, quiet crying. The kind that sounds like someone trying not to be heard, which somehow felt worse. Edwards didn't speak. Didn't comfort her. Didn't accuse her. Because this part belongs to the suspect alone. The moment where their brain finally catches up to what their body already did. After almost a minute, she whispered, "I didn't think he was gonna die." Her voice sounded younger now, almost childlike. Edwards nodded gently. "I understand. I don't know, people don't die that easy." That sentence hung in the air, because it revealed something brutally honest. She didn't stab him expecting death. She stabbed him expecting pain, punishment, consequences, but not death, which meant she never really understood how fragile people actually are, how thin the line is. One artery, one mistake, one decision, and everything ends. She wiped her face with her sleeve again, mascara smearing. "I've never even seen someone die before," she said, "until last night." Edwards didn't respond. Because what do you say to that? There's no training for your first death, especially when you're the reason. He finally spoke, voice calm and steady. "Amber, after you stood up, what did you do next?" She sniffed. "Nothing. Nothing. I just stood there." "For how long?" "I don't know. It felt weird." "Weird how?" She struggled for words. Like everything got quiet. Like when you turn off a TV and your ears are ringing. Ringing silence. Shock. Not fear. Not adrenaline. Just emptiness. That emotional vacuum after something irreversible happens. "Then what?" he asked. "I heard someone yell from a balcony." "What did they say?" "What did you do?" Her voice cracked. I didn't even know what to say. Because until that moment, she probably hadn't labeled it. Not murder, not killing, just something that happened. But when someone else says it out loud, "What did you do?" it forces reality into focus. She continued, "I remember looking down at my hands." She held them up unconsciously now, staring at them like she could still see it. They were covered. Blood. She nodded. "Yeah, like a lot. I didn't expect that much." That detail kept repeating with her. The amount, the volume, like her brain couldn't reconcile how much blood a human body actually holds. "It didn't feel real," she whispered. "Like a movie or something. Like fake blood." A lot of people say that. Reality looks staged when your brain refuses to accept it. Did you try to help him then? Edwards asked softly. "No. Why not? Her answer came faster this time. Because now she wasn't pretending. Because I knew. Knew what? That it was bad. Bad. Still not saying dead. Not yet. But you didn't call 911. She shook her head. I didn't even think about it. Why? She stared at the table again. I think I was scared. Of what? Of getting in trouble. There it was. Not fear for him. Fear for herself. And that tiny detail, that's what juries remember. Because it shows priority. Him dying. Are you getting caught? And she chose herself. Even if she didn't realize it at the time. Outside the glass, Morris exhaled slowly. That's it, he muttered. Not triumph. Not satisfaction. Just certainty. The case had locked into place. Not because of evidence. Not because of witnesses. Because of her own words. The most powerful evidence always comes from the suspect, and they almost always hand it over freely. Inside the room, Amber looked up suddenly. Am I going to prison? The question was small. Terrified. Finally. Real fear. Not of Blake. Not of that night. Of the future. Edwards chose his words carefully. I can't make promises. But this is serious. How serious? He didn't sugarcoat. A man died. Her breathing sped up, panic creeping in now. I didn't mean. I know, he said gently, but intent isn't the only thing the law looks at. She stared at him. Lost. Then what? Choices. That word hit harder than anything else he'd said. Choices. Because accidents are one thing. Choices are another. You had chances to walk away, he continued quietly. Chances to go inside. Chances to call for help. Chances to stop. Each sentence like another weight. And every time you chose to stay. Tears rolled freely now. She didn't wipe them. Didn't hide them. Just let them fall. Because there was nothing left to defend. No story left to build. Just truth. Ugly and permanent. Minutes passed. She finally whispered, I ruined everything. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just fact. I ruined my life. Edwards didn't correct her. Didn't comfort her. Because sometimes, that's simply reality. One night, 5 minutes, a handful of decisions, and your entire future collapses. Forever. He gathered the papers slowly. Interview almost over. But there was still one piece missing. One thing he hadn't asked yet. Not because he forgot. Because timing matters. And now she was ready. He looked at her gently. One last question. Amber. She nodded weakly. Before all this, before the gun, before the knife. A pause. Did you ever think about hurting him? The room went completely still again. Because that question digs deeper than events. It digs into thought, into intent, into what lived in her head long before that night. Her eyes widened slightly, and for the first time since it started, she didn't answer right away. Amber blinked, slowly, like the question itself had physical weight pressing against her eyelids. Did she think about it? Of course she did. It was impossible not to. He'd hurt her for years. Every insult, every sneer, every quiet manipulation. And now he was gone. But saying it aloud, admitting it, that was another thing entirely. Her voice trembled when it came, barely audible. I thought about it. Edwards nodded slowly, expression neutral. Did you ever plan it? No, she said quickly. I didn't plan to kill him. I didn't even think it would happen like that. Then what did you think would happen? He asked, leaning slightly forward. Her hands gripped the table edge. Her knuckles whitened. I thought maybe he'd get scared. That he'd stop. That it would just scare him. There it was. The truth she'd carried all this time. Intent. Not to kill, but to punish, to assert power where she had none. But reality has a way of stripping excuses. And the knife didn't care about her reasoning. The man on the floor didn't care about her fear or rage. She exhaled, shuddering. And then, he didn't stop, she whispered. He just laughed. And that's when, Her voice broke. She couldn't continue. The words wouldn't come. Edwards didn't push. He waited. because sometimes silence extracts more than questions ever could. Finally, she whispered the final part. I stabbed him. No flourish, no drama, just a plain statement. The sound of it hitting the air was heavier than any scream could have been. And with that, a dam broke inside her. Tears streamed freely. Sobs rattled her chest. She couldn't breathe through them. Her entire body shook. For the first time, the adrenaline faded completely. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't scared of him. She was scared of herself. Edwards remained calm, still not judgmental, because his job was to gather facts, not moralize. But even he noticed a shift, the transition from shock to terror to regret, from abstract guilt to acute awareness. She understood fully now what she had done, and that understanding, it changed everything. Minutes passed like hours. Amber's sobs slowed. Her voice returned, broken, hoarse, but clearer. I didn't mean to kill him. Intent doesn't erase result, Edwards reminded gently. I know, she said, nodding. I know. I never thought it would. I never thought it would be permanent. There it was again, the cool clarity of permanence. Some things can't be undone. Some choices can't be erased. And death, that is the ultimate permanence. He opened a folder and slid it toward her. You'll see this soon enough, he said softly. Photos, reports, statements, all the facts that corroborated her words, all the evidence she had tried to ignore. She looked down at them, face pale, hands trembling. All of this, it's me. Yes, Edward said quietly, every bit. The reality hit harder than anything else. Not the arrest, not the trial, not even the headlines. The realization that her own hands had done this. Her own choices, her own rage. Every shred of denial evaporated. Then came the inevitable question. What happens now? She asked. Edwards leaned back slightly. Now, he repeated. Now, you wait. You cooperate. You face what comes. What if I can't? You will, he said firmly. You don't have a choice. She swallowed hard. She knew he was right. And somewhere deep inside, she understood. This was no longer a story of anger, of fear, or even survival. It was a story of consequence. A story she could no longer escape. Amber's gaze fell to the floor. Her hands shook. She had lived her whole life avoiding responsibility, avoiding pain, avoiding confrontation. And now, there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The wall she had built around herself had collapsed. And outside the interrogation room, the world continued, indifferent. Edwards closed his folder quietly. This concludes our session for now, he said. You will have more opportunities to speak, but tonight, rest. You need it. Amber nodded silently. She didn't argue. She didn't protest. She didn't move. She just sat there, alone with her thoughts, alone with the truth. And for the first time, she realized something terrifying. She was never going home. Not the way she imagined. Not ever again. The thought settled in her chest, heavy and immovable. And yet, in some strange, perverse way, she felt relief, because denial was gone. And reality, harsh, unforgiving reality, had finally arrived. Outside, the corridor lights hummed softly. The world felt ordinary. Traffic, footsteps, distant voices. But inside Amber's mind, nothing was ordinary anymore. She had crossed a line. And nothing, no words, no tears, no regret, could take her back. She had entered a new reality, one defined not by choice, but by consequence. And in that reality, there was no forgiveness, only the path ahead. The officer watched her silently for a moment before leaving the room. Door closed. Amber remained seated, alone, trembling, exhausted. The night stretched long, and as the seconds ticked by, one truth became unavoidable. Some nights, some moments, are permanent. Some decisions, irreversible, and some lives forever altered. Amber sat in silence, staring at the gray walls of a cell. Time had lost meaning here. Minutes stretched into hours, hours into days, or maybe it was just the same night repeating itself endlessly. She didn't know anymore. Outside, the muffled voices of officers and distant footsteps seemed to echo through the concrete. But inside, Amber's mind was louder. She thought about him, the man she had hated, feared, and ultimately killed, not with planning, not with premeditation, but with raw, unfiltered emotion. And now, that act, her act, was a permanent mark she could never erase. She pressed her hand to her face, trying to block the memories, but they came anyway. The anger in his eyes, the way he laughed when he thought he had control, the cold, smug expression that had haunted her dreams for years. And then, the last moment, the knife, the sudden silence, and the shock of reality crashing down on her. She shivered. This was her truth. No one else could claim it. No one could rewrite it. Hours, or maybe it was days, later, the door opened. Detective Edward stepped in, his expression unreadable, but his eyes carried the weight of understanding. "Amber," he said gently, "you're going to meet someone." She raised her head slowly, suspicion and fear warring in her chest. "Who?" she asked, her voice a thin whisper. "You'll see. But first, you need to be ready to face what comes next." He handed her a blanket and guided her to her feet. She obeyed without question, the numbness inside her growing heavy with every step. The walk down the long corridor felt like walking through her own life. Every step echoed against the walls. Every shadow seemed alive. Every whisper of sound magnified her fears. When they reached the interview room, she saw him, not alive, not moving, not threatening, but present in a different way. The man she had feared was now gone. And yet, the emptiness he left behind felt heavier than any confrontation could have been. Detective Edwards gestured to a chair across the table. "Sit," he said. Amber obeyed. "Amber," he began, "you've admitted what happened. You've accepted responsibility. But there's more to understand about yourself." Her brow furrowed. "What more?" she asked. "Fear and anger are powerful," Edward said, leaning forward. "But they don't define you. Choice defines you. You made a choice, and now you'll live with it." She swallowed hard. "Yes," she whispered. I know." And he continued, "While the law will decide the consequences, you need to realize something crucial. The world doesn't forgive mistakes easily, but it also doesn't erase truth." Amber's gaze dropped. She had been living in denial for so long, fighting him, fearing him, believing she could somehow escape the consequences of her own actions. Now, reality had arrived, and it was merciless. Hours turned into an endless blur. Amber lay on the small cot, staring at the ceiling. She thought about her family, her friends, her life before him. She thought about the moment she could never reclaim, the words she could never unsay, the actions she could never undo. And then, slowly, a strange sense of clarity emerged. She realized something terrifying, and yet liberating. She could no longer run, not from herself, not from the consequences, not from the truth. And for the first time in years, she felt free, free from fear, free from pretending, free from denial, even if that freedom came at the highest cost. The days that followed were a haze of interviews, reports, and endless waiting. Detective Edwards returned frequently, guiding her through the process. "You will face the consequences," he said each time, "but at least you'll face them honestly." And she did. With each statement, each account, each confession, she felt the weight lift slightly. Not enough to erase guilt, but enough to survive it. One night, alone in her cell, Amber whispered to herself, "I am not who I was. I cannot be." Her hands shook as she clenched them into fists. "But I am who I must be, and that is enough." For the first time, she believed it. The path ahead was long. The road was unforgiving. But she would walk it, step by step, truth by truth. And as she lay down to rest, a thought lingered in the dark. Some endings are inevitable, some consequences unavoidable. But in the face of both, a person could still rise. Amber would rise, even if she would never go home again. The night pressed on. Outside, the world moved indifferently. Inside, Amber began the slow, painful journey of reckoning, not just with the law, not just with others, but with herself. The story was not over. It would never be over. But for the first time, she knew she would survive it, even if surviving meant walking alone. Amber woke to the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. The room smelled of disinfectant and cold metal. For a moment, she wondered if she was dreaming, but the weight of reality pressed down on her chest like a stone. Today was the day everything would change. Detective Edwards entered silently, his eyes softer than usual. "It's time," he said. Amber nodded. She had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her head. But no rehearsal could prepare her for the reality. The courtroom, the gavel, the judgment, the truth laid bare for all to see. The courtroom was crowded, buzzing with anticipation. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered, and eyes followed her every move. Amber felt exposed, vulnerable, but also strangely calm. She had faced the darkest parts of herself already. This was only another step. As she took her seat, the judge looked down at her, expression unreadable. Amber's lawyer gave her a reassuring nod. Detective Edwards stood quietly in the back, a silent support she hadn't realized she needed. The prosecutor recounted her story, the fear, the confrontation, the act of violence. Every detail was sharp and raw, every word a mirror of her guilt. Amber did not flinch. She had already admitted the truth. She had no illusions about redemption. Then it was her turn. She stood, voice steady, eyes meeting the court. "I made a choice," she began. "A choice that changed everything. I can't undo it. I can't erase what I've done. But I will live with it honestly. I will accept the consequences. I will not hide from myself or from the world." There was silence. Amber felt the weight of every word settle around her. Hours passed in legal procedure, arguments, and deliberation. When the verdict finally came, Amber felt neither fear nor relief, only acceptance. The judge's voice was calm, measured. "Amber Williams, for the actions you have committed, you will serve the sentence imposed by this court. May this time allow reflection, growth, and understanding of the gravity of your choices." No cheers, no cries, just a solemn recognition of reality. Amber nodded. She had expected nothing less, yet she felt strangely free. Free from denial, free from running, free from pretending. Back in her cell, Amber sat quietly, looking out the small barred window at the sky beyond. It was a world she could not fully touch, a home she could not return to, but life existed outside, and it continued, indifferent to her fate. Detective Edwards visited one last time. He didn't need words. His presence said enough. Amber nodded, a silent acknowledgement of everything they had shared, fear, truth, consequence, and understanding. "I'll manage," she said softly. He gave a faint smile and left. Alone, Amber allowed herself a rare moment of introspection. She thought of her past, her mistakes, the fear that had driven her. She thought of the man who had haunted her life, and the moment of violence that had sealed her path. And yet, amidst all that darkness, she felt a spark, small, fragile, but unmistakably real. It wasn't hope, not yet, but it was a seed of something that could grow. She whispered into the empty room, "I am still here. I am still me. And even if I never go home again, I will live. I will survive. I will face the world, step by step, truth by truth." The night stretched long and quiet. Amber lay down, not to escape, but to rest before the journey ahead. The path would be unforgiving, lonely, and harsh, but it was hers to walk. And for the first time, she felt ready, because some endings are inevitable, some doors close forever. But even within loss, even within consequence, the human spirit endures. Amber had lost her home, her freedom, her past, but she had not lost herself, and in that she found a measure of peace.